So I wanted to share just a little PowerPoint, a few images about collage. So if you are new to collage, this is kind of like a little kind of step into it, kind of explaining a little, it's like some ways to use it or to make it, and then a little bit of the history too. I think the history is always nice to know. But collage was actually started, coined, a term coined by a couple artists named Picasso and Barak. You may have heard of them before. But this was a movement that really kind of emerged under these two guys, these two artists, um, who worked in various mediums and like the avant-garde and assemblage movement. But it happened like around 1910. Now, I am sure that collage was something artists have been doing for many, many, many years before then, but it was kind of pushed to the forefront of the art world by these two guys in the early 1900s. Um, and so these are a couple examples of some of their collages that they've put together. So I want to take just a moment and look at these images for a second. One of them is done by Picasso and the other is Barak. And these guys share a studio for a little while. And so a lot of their making kind of happened alongside each other. And so there's a lot of similarities in some of their work. Picasso is definitely the one that made more of a name for himself. But these two guys kind of together kind of coined that term collage. So take just a moment and look at these two images here. What are some of the things that you notice in these two images? What are you noticing about the materials? And these guys, I know that they are not the end all be all of collage, but it's kind of nice to take a look at where this kind of started and some of the supplies that they used. It's not typical supplies. Who would think to use wallpaper in a collage or wood paneling or things like that? They got creative and they used the things that they had around them. Collage can have specific prompts, right? Or goals, titles to start with to kind of get us started. But an intuitive collage is all about trusting the process. It's cutting, gluing, assembling to create a brand new image, right? The great thing about an intuitive collage is that it doesn't need to make any kind of sense. It can just be things put together, which is really nice because that's no pressure, right? It takes the pressure off of having it to make it look like something. And so collage is really this projective technique where you create without any preconceived intentions. You choose imagery, colors, words that tend to reflect your inner thoughts or emotions. Our challenge for this past week was to pick up collage material, whatever jumped out at us. It didn't have to be any certain thing or be any type of theme, but just pay attention to the materials we had around us and gather them up for today. When we do this type of collage, we're kind of bypassing that censoring mind, right? Just grabbing things, not thinking about what doesn't go along with this theme, right? We're just gathering them together. And sometimes you can be a little surprised by what emerges when we do a collage on these type of materials. And so I want to go over some different types of ways we can collage. You don't have to do it any certain way. This is just to kind of get us started a little bit. And so these are some different ways to think about composition when it comes to collage. You can see in the first one in the upper left, there's something that's like a cluster collage. And it's not anything that's really fancy, right? None of these are. But this one is all about layering images on top of each other. And so you can see in that cluster collage that these figures are on top of each other with the building in the back. They're kind of clustered together. That's one way to kind of lay out your collage. Another way, just to the right of that one, you'll see it's a scene. And this one really is kind of creating your own landscape. And you can see it doesn't quite make sense, the images that they've chosen to make this landscape. But you can see they have the ground, the horizon line, the sky, and there's activity happening along that horizon line. They've created this kind of story or narrative that comes from this image. One way to kind of change up your collage too is by changing the background. You know, these first two, actually most of these types of collages here are on that square paper, right? Typical paper. But you can change that up too. That background, you can cut it up and make an organic shape like this one. It doesn't have to be just plain square. So you can be creative with the actual shape of the collage. Some ways to do collage is by mimicking something else. You can see this image of Obama. This one is just kind of an example of mimicking, making it look like something else. It looks like some playing cards. So you're kind of playing off that idea. Maybe you want to make your collage look like a magazine ad or something like that, but it's kind of giving it that feeling of being something else. Shape is another way. You don't have to do, like I said, the square shape. You can make a circle collage in the middle of a square paper. Again, just kind of changing up that composition, how you want it to be, thinking outside the box here. Doing collage is such a great way to express and encourage our creativity, because you really are thinking outside the box here. You've got all these different pieces that you put together that may not originally go together. And so it's kind of creating this new narrative out of already found pieces, which is, I think there's something that's really fun and enjoyable about that. Anyway, another type of collage is this kind of orbit kind of collage. And it's all about having this central image and then having these other images kind of to back it up. So you have your star image and then your supporting cast around there, kind of focusing on that central image. And the last thing I want to talk about for composition is using words. So it's taking phrases or words and just building your collage around that, making those images, those icons, whatever you're using, support whatever word or phrase that you want. So these are like just a few ways to kind of arrange a collage, to set it up. Know that you don't have to do any of these. This is just to kind of get us thinking in that direction, thinking about the possibilities. So this one is focused more on technique, right? Different techniques that we can use to add to our collage, add to it. One of the ways is to replace. So you see with this image here, there's a figure's head, and part of his head is replaced with these other images. It doesn't have to be a figure. It can be like a tree, and instead of the leaves on the top, it could be cupcakes. It's like replacing something that you would expect to be there with something else, just like in this image here. You can also combine things together. So this image here is, I think there's like 3 or 4 different pieces that make up her face. It's combining all these features to make one central piece. And so you can do that just like here, adding them together to create a central figure. Texture is another way to really add to your collage. And you can do that in so many different ways. From the type of paper that you use, whether you're using something thin like tissue paper or newspaper, or something a little thicker stock or wallpaper, but also thinking about the different textures too that you can bring in that are in paper. Cardboard, for example, peeling that top layer off of cardboard so you have those corrugated edges patterning. That's a really nice way to add to a collage, or using something that you maybe don't expect, like sandpaper, as part of the collage. That's a way to kind of add to the texture of it. Maybe using torn edges instead of cut edges, or using a combination of both. There's so many different ways to kind of add texture in to our composition, to our piece. And then these 3 that we have next, this next row, is all about kind of revealing something. One of them, we have the image, a black and white image of a young woman on top, and then a color image of an older woman maybe underneath. But you can see that the top paper is torn away, so it's revealing what's underneath it. You can also do that by cutting your paper and arranging it in strips. I had someone recently in a collage group that we did took an old painting, a watercolor painting, that they weren't happy with the results. And so they cut it into strips and added that to their collage, and it turned out beautifully. So it's not just about taking these figures from a magazine, but thinking about maybe there's a calendar image that's really nice and you want to kind of weave that in. Maybe you have some wrapping paper that's really pretty, you don't want to throw away. You can cut that up and add that in too. And then outline is another way to think about technique for collage. And this is one I really enjoy, but it's cutting out. You can see cutting out part of the figure. They left the head in there, but the body is missing, and they wrote into it. So it leaves this kind of silhouette shape. You can write in it like this one, or you can add other colors and imagery in that space. But it kind of makes it stand out a little more now that it's been kind of cut off or cut out. And then the last thing on this page is shapes and symbols and drawing and painting. And this really is just another way to add things in. Maybe you're not finding an image that you want, you can draw it in. You don't have to use markers, you can use paint and watercolor, pastels, colored paper. So many different ways to add texture by using different materials, right? And then adding in shapes and symbols. I know that certain symbols have meaning, universal meaning, but sometimes we have our own symbols too, with our personal meaning, and it's nice to kind of add that in as well. Maybe one of the symbols that I bring into a lot of my work is a paintbrush. I feel like that says a lot about who I see myself as, and so it tends to go into a lot of my work somewhere along the way. There's a paintbrush that's thrown in. And so maybe you have a symbol or a shape that's part of your own iconography that you want to bring in. And so anyway, these are some examples of ways or techniques to use when it comes to building a collage. Know that you don't have to do any of these, but sometimes it's nice to have that like starting place to get our brain thinking and going. Let's go ahead and pull out your clean sheet of paper. I'm going to be using my journal today, but if you don't have your journal with you, definitely go ahead and pull out a blank piece of paper. We're going to need that glue stick, a pair of scissors, and and then our collage material. And so you can see my example here. I've collected quite a few random supplies that I'm going to use today. Not really with a plan of what I'm going to do, but just kind of thinking and grabbing the things that jumped out at me this week. And so I've got a pile of supplies that I'm going to be using, but I'm also bringing in some of my Costco ads. In case there's something else I want to bring into my collage today as well. So go ahead and pull out your collage material. I'm going to start that collage today. I'm going to turn my book sideways to kind of work on mine. One of the ways that I have found really helps when it comes to starting a collage is to kind of lay our supplies out in front of us. But I'm just going to go ahead and spread my supplies out so I can kind of see a little bit of what I have on hand. Yeah, and I would encourage you to do that as well. Because this is an intuitive collage, there's no prompt or anything like that we're going to start with. We're just going to take what we have, what we've gathered, and arrange it on our paper in whatever way feels right. There's something that is just intuitive about collaging just in general. We may not know exactly what we want, but I think we know when something doesn't work for us, right? So you see these pieces put together and maybe it doesn't fit in a way that feels good. One of the great things about collage is you don't have to glue it down that way. Gluing is definitely one of the last steps for sure. So you can arrange and rearrange again. Prepping supplies, and maybe you've prepped supplies that you're not going to use, and that's okay too. They're prepped for next time. There's something that's very freeing about this type of collaging that can be very freeing about that. So go ahead and pull out all your materials, see what you have around you. And let's start our collage. You'll be able to follow, see what I'm doing, follow along with me if you like. Strike out on your own, create that collage out of the materials that you have. One of the things, another thing that helps me when it comes to starting my collage is just looking at my materials and seeing if there's a central image that jumps out at me. That stands out more than the others. And that's usually where I start when it comes to building that collage. And so if you're feeling a little stuck, maybe not sure how to start, that's a good first step. Thinking about, is there an image or a word that stands out to you out of your supplies? And so I have an image here that I think I'm going to start with. This is going to be kind of my focus for my collage. So I'm going to go ahead and trim it and use this one as kind of that starting point for me. So go ahead and start that collage, whether it's finding that central image or just starting to lay things out. And just kind of go through and look at your other materials and kind of build off of it. You may not know exactly what to add next, and that's okay. The good news is you don't have to know. You can just kind of move things around until it feels right. And generally, I think we know when something feels right and when it doesn't. So just take your time with this today, building those collage, building it up, adding to it, knowing that it doesn't have to be a certain way. It really is all about taking time to move things around, see what works. Maybe in your process, you want to glue things down when you're like, yes, this is it. And go ahead and glue it down right away. But know that it doesn't have to be glued down in any special way. You can save that for the end if you want. Just start adding your pieces together. Maybe you've got some colored paper that you want to bring in. Maybe you've got magazine pages that you want to bring in. Start building up your collage. Be confident knowing that whatever you do is right. It doesn't have to be a certain way. We just looked at several examples, but it doesn't have to be any of those examples. These are just things, examples to get us kind of started in that direction, get us thinking. And take your time with it too. I think sometimes we feel like we need to rush through a little bit. Know that it's okay if you're not finished. We have such a small amount of time that we have together in these groups. And there's nothing wrong with not finishing it today while we're together. Maybe the collage wasn't meant to be finished. It was just for this time. Maybe it's something that you can go back to later and finish. There's no rule that says it has to be done right now. Yeah, I'm prepping supplies, some of my paper to use. And I may not use everything that I cut out, but it's good to um, kind of prep things, get started. Sometimes just doing that that prepping kind of helps us think about what we want to do. And again, I want to encourage you to just let your mind wander doing this collage. No, it doesn't have to be a theme. It can be. And just kind of trust the process here. So maybe you're coming to the end of your collage. You've cut out pieces and done some rearranging. Maybe you've got some more rearranging to go. And just take your time. Take your time with it today. Yeah, maybe you're already starting to notice in your own collage, you're starting to notice a theme that's coming up. Know that, I was talking about gluing things down earlier. Know that you don't have to glue it down. Maybe this is something you're just arranging and rearranging for this moment. But once you find that you found like a layout that you're happy with, it's okay to start gluing that down. And I'm going to start doing that with my pieces too. I'm gonna one more of these little butterflies I found. Hmm. Like I said, just take your time with it today. I know our time is coming to a close, and I'm nowhere near finished for mine. Um, you're coming to a stopping place. I'm going to glue some of my pieces down. But take a moment and look over what you're doing so far. You may not be finished. I'm not finished. But take a moment and just kind of look at what you've done. And is there anything that's jumping out at you or any theme that's standing out for you? And I guess my question is, what was that expected, or were you surprised by what you started gluing together?